So when I heard Vishant's talk on technology, I thought, man, that's it. I'm going to talk a lot about technology. Privileged to be here, and thank you for having me, Mahindra World, Siri, and the team at For Young India. So I'm going to talk about metamorphosis of cities. And as I talk about metamorphosis of cities, I'm going to take a slightly tangential but crucial view towards this. And I'm going to begin with this. You all know what this is. Yeah? This is the Terminator from the Terminator 2. And the first time I heard the term cybernetics was in this conversation between John and the Terminator, where John asked the Terminator, you're like a machine underneath, but sort of living outside. And Arnold Schwarzenegger says, I'm a cybernetic organism, a living tissue over metal endoskeleton. That was the first time I heard this. 1991, I was in 10th standard, and I thought cybernetics was one of the most futuristic words I'd ever heard until then. Well, I forgot about it promptly. Many years later, when I really looked at it, I was surprised to see that cybernetics actually has its origins in a Greek word, which means kybernetiki, which means to steer, navigate, and govern. No tech. Yeah? And if it is a Greek word, obviously it must have had, older origins. Anybody want to guess how old? In fact, the first recorded attribute to cybernetics was in Plato's Alcibiades, way back in 350 BC. And he used it simply to say the study of self-governance. No tech, nothing prophetic, nothing futuristic, just simple study of self-governance. 350 BC. Going forward, in fact, in the context that we use it, also really old, in 1948, Norbert Wiener, he used it in his book called Cybernetics of the Control and Communication Man and the Machine. Yes, that's somewhere closely related to me. Moving on. So all these self-governing systems have a simple feedback loop. All automated systems have a feedback loop. And feedback loops are crucial. In fact, the oldest feedback loop is way back in 250 BC again. Flyball governor, which governed the engine. Moving forward really quickly, the negative feedback amplifier. If we didn't have this, we would not have any of the electronics that we have today. Moving further, something closer to our time, 2011, when we had the Nest thermostat. In fact, it learned. It did things by learning. It just didn't do by simple feedback, but it accumulated feedback over a period of time and then performed actions. So that's in 2011, and going forward, we'll have many more feedback-based systems, metamaterials, materials that learn and based on environment, on your body conditions, autopoiesis, systems that can actually reproduce themselves, new things. There is medical cybernetics. There is emergence, fields where wholes are composed of small parts. But all of this is in the future, and these are things that we're going to see. But the reason I'm showing you this variety of applications is to tell you really that there are just two kinds of cybernetic systems. One is cybernetic systems that are static. You all know this, thermostats, right? I mean, you set it to a temperature, it goes up, or goes down, and then when it reaches that, cuts off. The other is in morphogenetic systems, systems that evolve based on the feedback that they get. Living organisms, human societies are all examples of this kind of cybernetic system. But just, yes, two kinds of cybernetic systems. There are several orders of cybernetics. I have left it, in the interest of time. But now, actually in the back is also a painting by Escher. I don't know if you heard of Escher, but he's one of the most popular painters with mathematics. In fact, if you notice, the bottom is a field, and the field morphs into birds at the top and several other things. But the reason I also put it here is because it's almost difficult to see the blue birds and the white birds at the same time. And pretty much in like in cybernetic systems, you can't really see inward and outside, or outward, as they say, at the same time. But we'll come to it. I'm going to apply this to cities now. Oh, I forgot one more thing. Evolution. So applying this to cities, as you all heard, cities are complex, interconnected systems, adaptive systems too. If you have the utility water, right? You have water and you have energy, the smart grid. Independently, yes, they have a lot of functions to do, but they're also related. 20% of energy use in rural India is to pump water from one place to another. In fact, in cities, apparently, almost 15% of the water is used to pump water from one place. 15% of the energy is used to pump water from one place to another. In Delhi, for example, there's one pump to suck water from the main pump, they put it into the sump. Then there's another pump to pump water from the sump to the overhead tank. And then there's another pump to put pressure. So 3 pumps. So pretty much 15% and above energy is used to do water movement from one to the other. And the other is water. Water itself, non-revenue water, as most of you know, is upwards of 50% in India. That's the average. Now, all of this, if it was shared, if the data was available, if this feedback that was accumulated was shared, you would actually move on to a better system. You could actually have perennial water. You could have sufficient energy for all. It's not that we do not lack it in either way. It is we use it inefficiently, we use it incorrectly. Despite the feedback that we have, despite the knowledge that we have, it is used incorrectly. This, of course, can lead to cities. And as cities grow, cities become better, you can evolve to more resilient cities, more sustainable and resilient cities. That's the evolution that we look forward to. That's the evolution we need to look forward to. How can we do this? Simply. And I'm going to come back. I'm going to come to tech now. And this is there in the National Telecom Policy, 2018, where the National Telecom Policy says you need to have a layer that shares data between different verticals. It's still policy level. It needs to come down. But what happens when you share data across these different verticals? There's an example that I can take from an actual proposal in the Smart City mission that is there today. So you have transport, energy, buildings, and others, different departments. Now, in isolation, they all work perfectly well. But if there's an ambulance that needs to go, from one place to another, ambulance that belongs to the environment and health, if it needs to go to the transport, well, it needs to send data. So if it has to change signal lights, it needs to send data from one system to the other. Similarly, we spoke about pollution. In Delhi here, it's crucial. If it needs to know and route traffic or reroute traffic, these two systems by two different departments need to talk. If you take it one step further and we go with the smart card that the governments are talking about introducing, you could detect pollution, you could reroute traffic, and if the person actually takes the rerouted traffic, you could give him an incentive in a smart card. So all of this is possible. All of this is possible by virtue of sharing the data, by making services common, and by making systems that can talk to one another. The other thing that I want to talk about is something that we do besides the layer is on providing feedback from machines and from people. But moving on very quickly, that's there in all the airports, 32 airports here in India. And this is there in the Swachh Bharat mission where we take data from people on whether the sanitary facilities are clean or not. But what I want to talk to you here particularly is about this. It's a behavioral science statement that talks about mere measurement effect, which means that when people are asked something, they actually act in accordance with their answers. So among the toilets that had that facility, most of the toilets required less cleaning than traditional ones because people actually kept them clean. They were asked if the toilet was clean, they actually kept them clean. Similarly, in the productivity business, in the productivity machine there, when the machine was being monitored, the machines that were monitored actually had better productivity than other machines. So it's the simple effect that says, people or machines or things actually do better because of the people when they are being monitored. I had to put this in about IoT and data in China, not for comparison, but for us to be aware, for us to learn. In fact, I showed this to the Chinese authorities. In fact, they didn't confirm or deny. But what is evident here, or what's important to all of us, is that 2011, China, in fact, China was the only country that had their IoT as an item of prime importance in their 12th five-year plan. No other country has had this. And the effect that they're talking about, and they had 9 demonstration projects in all these areas: smart industry, environment, information, ITS, intelligent transportation systems, smart living. And just these demonstration projects were massive. In the smart grid, they are 100 million meters. In the transportation systems, they had over 4,600 lanes that were made ETC. Where I'm going with all of this, it's not just the systems that were made technology-enabled, but it's also about the amount of money that they spent into it. A $600 billion that the government laid as an investment into IoT into 2020. They also did, like what we're doing, smart cities, and they did 500 smart cities at over $300 billion. But it's not just this. It's not just this. It is also that they were, smart enough, I use the word smart here, to say what is the cumulative impact on their GDP by 2030 because of those investments. It's $1.7 trillion. $1.7 trillion in 2030, that is roughly, if you take China's GDP at that time to be between 30 and 40 trillion dollars, it's between 5 and 7%. We are supposed to be a $6 trillion to $7 trillion economy then. It's 25%, massive numbers. This is my last slide. I'm going to end with this. I call it the interdependence of the inefficiencies, again, to do with data. That's $10 billion. That's the answer. Anybody know what the question is? Well, we spoke a lot about this. That is the cost of traffic to New Delhi last year, 2017. So 2017, the year before last. In isolation, again, it doesn't make sense. But if you look at it in conjunction with this number, I'm sure you all know what it is. It is India's GDP in 2017, 2.6 trillion. It's 0.38%. If you look at this, which is India's oil import bill at the same time, at $70 billion, it's 14.2%. If you look at this in relation with our current account deficit at that period, $13 trillion, that's 76%. Now, for all of us individually, none of these numbers matter, but when you look at it and say that these numbers influence everything that we buy, electronics, phones, computers, even petrol, it affects the common man. Yeah? And when it affects the common man, and if everybody is aware that this is what really, and how it impacts them, I think there will be significant changes in people's behavior